somebody drive me back to my Honda? I left it parked at the front gate. Walk!
It means I'll have to sit around here all night.
What's wrong with spending a quiet evening at...
What would you do if everything you believed about your family turned out to be a mystery waiting to be unraveled? Patty Duke was once America's sweetheart, an actress who brought joy to millions through the Patty Duke Show and stunned audiences with her Oscar-winning performances. But behind the scenes, Patty's life was anything but sweet. It was filled with emotional turmoil, impulsive romances, and private struggles. She was fearless, unpredictable, and deeply conflicted. And at the center of her storm was a baby boy, raised with love but burdened by a single haunting question. For years, her son, Sean Astin, was trapped in a confusing paternity mystery so twisted that even Patty didn't have a clear answer. Was his father a young Hollywood heartthrob? Her brief husband? Or the man who stepped in and raised him as his own? It would take decades, 3 possible fathers, and 1 jaw-dropping DNA test to reveal the truth. And when it came, the answer shocked everyone. It wasn't who anyone expected. To grasp the full weight of this Hollywood drama, you first need to understand who Patty Duke really was. This story doesn't begin with her son, Sean Astin. It begins with a teenage girl who spent her life in front of cameras, lived through incredible highs and lows, and left behind a legacy that was as radiant as it was tragic. Patty Duke burst into Hollywood like fireworks. She began acting at the age of 8 and quickly became one of the most celebrated young talents in America. Her breakthrough came in 1962 when, at just 16, she portrayed Helen Keller in The Miracle Worker. That role earned her an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, making her the youngest winner in that category at the time. While other teenagers were dealing with schoolwork, Patty was on stage accepting an Oscar. Her fame only grew with the Patty Duke Show, where she charmingly played identical cousins, Patty and Kathy Lane. The show was a hit, and she became a household name. But beyond the fame, Patty's real life was a far cry from the cheerful characters she portrayed. Privately, Patty suffered in silence. Her managers, who took control of her career when she was just a child, pushed her relentlessly and treated her unfairly. She later revealed they had acted inappropriately, but at the time, she had no support and no one to stand up for her. As she got older, the cracks in her well-crafted public image began to show. Patty experienced intense mood swings and erratic behavior that those around her couldn't explain. It wasn't until much later that she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, a condition she would bravely speak about in later years as an advocate for mental health. But during the 1960s and 70s, untreated and misunderstood, Patty's condition sent her into emotional tailspins. Her love life mirrored that chaos. She had a tendency to fall in love quickly and recklessly. Her relationships were passionate, brief, and often bewildering. By her early 20s, she had already been through several serious relationships and marriages, some lasting barely a week. Many of these began during manic episodes, where her energy soared, her emotions surged, and impulsive decisions ruled. Sadly, as the mood swung back down, so did the relationship, often ending in confusion or heartbreak. This storm of emotional instability, romantic chaos, and personal vulnerability would eventually lead to one of the most puzzling chapters of her life, a question that would haunt her for years. In 1971, Patty gave birth to a baby boy. What should have been a joyous occasion quickly became a media frenzy. The reason? No one, not even Patty, knew for sure who the baby's father was. At the time, she had been romantically involved with several men. The timelines overlapped, her memory was unclear, and her feelings were scattered. All of this happened during a period when her mental health was untreated and poorly understood. She had briefly married one man, was emotionally tied to another, and had a close relationship with a third, all within a short span of time. When baby Sean was born, there were 3 men who could plausibly be his biological father. Patty was convinced she knew who it was and made that belief public. The media exploded with speculation. Rumors flew, headlines screamed, and the world watched eagerly for answers. But what separated this situation from your typical tabloid scandal was the deep emotional layer beneath it. Patty wasn't just another celebrity caught up in gossip. She was often labeled a Hollywood diva stirring up drama, but in truth, she was a woman grappling with something much deeper, a very real, raw, and internal struggle with her mental health, her memory, and her relationships. Because of this, she genuinely believed she was giving her son the right answers. Yet, as time went by, even Sean began to question whether the story his mother had told him was actually the truth. Sean Astin's story began on February 25, 1971, when the world welcomed Patty Duke's baby boy. He would later grow up to become a beloved actor, a family man, and, without knowing it at first, the central figure in one of Hollywood's most puzzling paternity scandals. Many people remember Sean Patrick Astin as Mikey from The Goonies. He was just a kid, but even then, he had a unique spark. Unlike many child actors whose careers burned out early, Sean's journey was steady and resilient. He kept growing in his craft without collapsing under pressure, a rare feat in Hollywood. His career took a major leap forward when he landed the role of Samwise Gamgee in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. When the films were announced, the spotlight was on Elijah Wood, Viggo Mortensen, and Ian McKellen. But as the story unfolded, it was Sean's character, Sam, who quietly became the emotional heart of the series. That role brought him both recognition and fame. Still, Sean never fully embraced the Hollywood spotlight. He didn't chase attention, scandals, or tabloid headlines. Even as the child of a famous actress, he carved out a different path, one that kept him grounded while many around him lost their way in the fame. Sean even earned an Academy Award nomination, not for acting, but for directing and co-producing a short film titled Kangaroo Court, which was nominated for Best Live-Action Short Film in 1995. Many people don't even realize he was behind that project. Then, years later, he reappeared on screen in Stranger Things, and once again, he managed to steal the show. But while he was achieving so much professionally, few people knew how complicated his personal life really was. Behind all the success, Sean carried a deep question, one he eventually sought to answer. From the moment Sean was born, his life was clouded by uncertainty. Even his mother Patty wasn't sure who his biological father was. Still, she had to give the world an answer, even without being certain. There were 3 men connected to Patty at the time, each one a possible father. The least likely and most surprising of the 3 was Michael Tell. Michael Tell was a writer and music promoter, mostly unknown to the public. He crossed paths with Patty Duke in 1970, during a particularly unstable and emotional time in her life. He had been subletting her apartment, and although they had a brief fling, it wasn't a relationship, barely even a friendship. But things took an unexpected turn when Patty discovered she was pregnant. Fearing rumors and public scandal, she made a quick decision to marry Michael Tell in a simple civil ceremony. No big celebration, no glamour, just a fast, almost desperate move to protect her image. Unfortunately, the marriage ended after only 13 days. Patty had it annulled and insisted that it had nothing to do with love or commitment. She viewed it strictly as a way to cover up her situation. For years, she denied that Michael could be Sean's father and even claimed their relationship had never been consummated. To her, he was just a name, an error she corrected as fast as it happened. But surprisingly, Michael Tell's name would resurface later in a way no one could have anticipated. Another man Patty had been involved with was Desi Arnaz Jr., son of iconic television stars Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz Sr. from I Love Lucy. Desi Jr. was Hollywood royalty, a teen heartthrob, actor, and musician. At the time of their relationship, he was still very young, and the pairing caused quite a stir. The age difference, combined with Patty's emotional fragility, made the media take notice. Some reports even claimed that Lucille Ball was outraged by the romance and tried to shut it down. She didn't want her teenage son entangled in what she likely viewed as an unstable and risky affair. Still, Patty believed Desi was the right one. For many years, she told Sean that Desi Arnaz Jr. was his biological father. And, honestly, at first, the theory seemed believable and the timing matched up. Still, Desi never officially acknowledged Sean as his son, but he also didn't deny the rumors. He chose to remain quiet, steering clear of drama and media attention. So, for much of Sean's childhood, the story went that his mother was a famous actress, and his father was the son of Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. He accepted that version of his life, until much later, when the real truth came to light. There was also John Astin, the man who eventually gave Sean his last name. Most people knew John as Gomez Addams from the Addams Family. In the mid-1970s, Patty Duke married John, and together they raised Sean. John legally adopted him, giving him the Astin name. To the public, and even to Sean, John was simply his father. Patty and John had another son, Mackenzie Astin, who also pursued acting. For years, their family life looked solid, even loving. Despite her early struggles, Patty seemed to have found some stability. John was dependable, calm, and caring. Sean looked up to him, and as a child, truly believed that John Astin was his biological father, not just in heart, but by blood. But as he grew older, nagging doubts began to surface. The truth grew murky, and things only got more confusing. Over time, Patty's version of events began to shift. She didn't just change her story once, she changed it several times. First, she told Sean that John was his biological father. Later, she began saying it was actually Desi Arnaz Jr. Then, at times, she would dismiss both and vaguely hint at someone else. Outsiders thought she might be dodging the truth. But those who knew her best understood that she wasn't being dishonest, she was struggling. Patty wasn't trying to deceive anyone. Her bipolar disorder made it hard for her to recall certain memories clearly, especially from the chaotic and emotionally turbulent years of her life. Sadly, she carried deep guilt over not having a clear answer for Sean. She loved him with everything she had but simply couldn't provide the closure he longed for. It was heartbreaking for Sean. He had nothing but love for his mother. He respected John Astin and appreciated the father figure he had been. He was also curious about Desi Arnaz Jr. but eventually, the uncertainty became overwhelming. He just wanted to understand who he really was. Then things took an unexpected turn when a relative of Michael Tell casually mentioned they might be related. That moment added even more confusion to an already sensitive situation. As the speculation grew, Sean knew he had to seek answers for himself. He made a life-changing decision: he would take a DNA test. It wasn't about anger or resentment. It was about finding peace, clarity, and honoring everyone who had played a role in his life. What followed would completely reshape his identity. Taking the first step was not easy. Sean had to approach 3 different men: John Astin, Desi Arnaz Jr., and Michael Tell, whom he barely knew. Michael had been out of the picture almost from the start. His brief marriage to Patty had been a whirlwind, short-lived and surrounded in mystery. Still, Sean was respectful and direct. Thankfully, all 3 men agreed to participate in the DNA testing. Once the tests were done, the waiting began. Each day felt endless, stretched thin with anticipation. This period was filled with anxiety for Sean, but also a quiet sense of hope. Finally, he might uncover the answers that had eluded him for so long. At the same time, a part of him was scared. What if the truth changed everything he thought he knew about his life? Eventually, the results arrived. Sean sat down, opened the report, and read the answer he had been searching for. Michael Tell was his biological father. The man who had been part of Patty's life for less than 2 weeks. The man who had disappeared from the narrative for decades. That man was the biological connection Sean had long wondered about. The revelation hit hard, but not in a devastating way. It was quiet, powerful, and strangely peaceful. Sean didn't respond with resentment. Instead, he felt free. He later shared with People magazine, "If you want to know who I am, John Astin is my father, and Michael Tell is my biological father." The most beautiful part of the story was that his love for John didn't change. In fact, it grew stronger. Sean now understood something deeper than genetics. DNA may make someone your biological relative, but love is what truly makes a family. And with that final truth, he was finally able to embrace who he was, with clarity and peace. Sean chose to move forward with peace, clarity, and a complete understanding of who Michael was, not only as a father, but as a man and a storyteller in his own right. However, when the DNA results were revealed, an entirely new chapter began, one that Sean hadn't truly anticipated. He now faced the challenge of building a relationship with a man who had never really been part of his story until that moment. Taking the initiative, Sean made the courageous decision to reach out. According to reports, their first meeting wasn't dramatic or filled with tension. Instead, it was calm, respectful, and meaningful, filled with connection, understanding, and a sense of closure. What made the situation even more positive was Michael's openness. Though he had always led a private life, he was said to be very welcoming toward Sean. He didn't deny the DNA results or shy away from responsibility. Rather, he accepted the truth and approached the delicate moment with a sense of grace and humility. Michael Tell wasn't a Hollywood figure. He had no reputation built on blockbuster movies or magazine features. He was a music promoter, quiet, low profile, and very much behind the scenes. This was a stark contrast to the world Sean came from, one filled with red carpets and cameras. But as Sean got to know Michael, he began to recognize parts of himself that had never made sense before. Sean has never spoken poorly about Michael. On the contrary, he has described the journey of discovering his biological father as one filled with compassion and peace, not resentment. In an interview, he once said, "I have a good relationship with Mike. That's who I am. I don't fault anybody. I don't fault myself or Daisy, who is like my godfather. I have such a powerful love bond with this man. He's a gorgeous human being." Michael never attempted to rewrite the past. He didn't try to interfere with the meaningful relationships Sean already had with John Astin or Desi. Instead, he stepped into the picture quietly, simply becoming the missing piece and allowing things to progress naturally. For Sean, the emotional impact was both profound and transformative. Learning the truth about his biological father didn't diminish Sean's love for John Astin, nor did it alter his relationship with Patty Duke. What it did do was give him a deeper sense of identity and a more complete understanding of himself, biologically, emotionally, and spiritually. In interviews, Sean has acknowledged that he has 3 fathers, 1 biological and 2 who raised and influenced him. He's expressed genuine gratitude for the role each one played in his life. This outlook is admirable because it's not only inclusive, but also rooted in love and honesty. It may be this mindset that helped Sean navigate a very public paternity controversy with remarkable dignity. Rather than letting the situation define who he was, he used it as a means of growth and self-awareness. For Patty Duke, the truth about Sean Astin's biological father was more than just a revelation, it was a reckoning. It forced her to confront her past head-on. This wasn't merely about scientific results. It represented years of emotional struggle, personal mistakes, and the overwhelming challenge of being a mother while living under Hollywood's constant scrutiny. So how did Patty Duke respond once the truth was revealed? The reality was that Patty had lived much of her life burdened by secrets. Some were placed on her by others, some were of her own making. Her later diagnosis of bipolar disorder provided long overdue clarity about her years of mental health difficulties. She candidly admitted that her behavior during the 1960s and 1970s was often impulsive and unstable. She struggled to trust others, yearned desperately for love, and was surrounded by people who didn't always have her best interests at heart, people who told her what to do and how to behave. Tragically, when she became pregnant in 1970, even she wasn't sure who the father was due to the chaos in her life. At that time, she had been romantically involved with Desi Arnaz Jr., a relationship that caused a stir, not only because of the age gap but also because of his fame and powerful family legacy. She also had a brief legal marriage to Michael Tell, which she insisted was never consummated. And of course, there was also John Astin. Patty understood that her life during that period was so chaotic that she couldn't say for certain who the father was. Rather than face judgment or live in painful uncertainty, she chose a version of the story and committed to it. For most of Sean's life, that version was that John Astin was his father, and in many ways, he truly was. But once the DNA test revealed the truth, Patty could no longer keep the secret. Still, her reaction was far from what people expected. The actress. Being a dad isn't just about DNA. Yes, biology has its place. And yes, the truth does matter. But when it comes to love, guidance, and being a father, it's the experiences and relationships that truly define the role. Sean never felt the need to choose just one father figure. Instead, he chose to honor each relationship for what it brought to his life. John may not be his biological dad, but he was the one who tucked him in at night, helped with homework, taught him about discipline, and showed him how to be a good man. John was there for the birthdays, the school plays, and even the tough teenage years. To Sean, John isn't just a father figure, he is dad. In an interview, Sean shared, "I want to honor my relationships with the people who looked after me, especially John, who gave a huge amount of his time, energy, and love." His connection with Desi Arnaz Jr. was different. They never built a strong father-son bond, and over time, Desi faded from Sean's life story. Still, Sean never speaks of him with resentment. He understands that in the 1970s, Desi was a young man swept up in the chaos of Hollywood fame and rumors. Sean doesn't blame him. Instead, he views that part of his past as one piece of the bigger journey that led him to the truth. Discovering that Michael was his biological father was a major moment, but it didn't shake his world. He approached it with the same grace and maturity that defines him. Today, Sean talks about Michael with quiet respect. Their relationship isn't dramatic or public, but there's a mutual understanding. Sean has accepted the role Michael plays in his life and has made peace with it. Sean Astin's story isn't just about finding out who his biological father is. It's about reshaping the meaning of family. He was raised in love. He sought the truth. And when he found it, he didn't try to rewrite the past, he simply added another piece to his story. His journey is proof that family can't always be defined by blood. It's about connection, choice, and the courage to embrace every part of your life, even the messy and complicated parts. What do you think? Did Sean make the right call by taking a DNA test? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more untold stories.